The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. This is Robert Chakowski, Managing Partner for On-Demand Advisors, and it's a pleasure to have you join us today. Today, we want to talk about how a proactive partner program drives revenue growth. Now, if you're like me, many of you have seen and may have at your company today a partner program. What I found, without exception, is that most partner programs really are either not meeting the expectations that you have when you set up the partner program, or they're underperforming. So you're not getting the type of revenue, the customer engagement, nor maybe the partner mind share that you're thinking about that you want to achieve with your partner program. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And after working with many companies with their partner program and implementing a proactive partner program, and that's the key word, proactive, I'm going to share with you today two really big takeaways, what I think are really breakthroughs in terms of how we think about partner programs and how you can apply that today at your company. So as with any of these webinars that we have, they are really jam-packed with great information, with examples of companies that have implemented partner programs or other revenue growth innovations. And we're going to share that with you today as we go through our time together. Keep in mind that we encourage all questions. So all questions are welcome. We want you to participate in the polls that we have today. Give us your thoughts on these different areas, and we'll share that with everybody that's attending the webinar. So it's fully interactive. If for some reason we get too many questions and we can't answer them today throughout the webinar or through our Q&A session, then I'll make sure that I follow up with you one-on-one after the webinar today. So again, thank you very much for investing this hour with us. We appreciate it, and we look forward to a very rewarding experience for you and for your company. Just in terms of my background, I co-founded On-Demand Advisors with Craig Remy 12 years ago. And we have a very simple mission, is to help you as a B2B business executive achieve success in terms of accelerating revenue growth for your company. One of the things I've learned as being a CEO for both public and private companies in Silicon Valley is that in many cases, if you were working with venture partner firms or private equity firms, it would not be unusual for them to ask you to grow revenue by 30, 50, sometimes 100% year over year. And what that really does is it challenges you to think about, what do I need to do? What kind of engine do I need to build so that this actually is not only attainable, but it's realistic? I've also had the good fortune of building 10 B2B technology and services companies at various stages. So what I wanted to make sure that we're talking about today is best practices that you can apply both on the direct as well as indirect side to achieve the type of growth and the type of revenue acceleration that you need, and do it in a very expedient, capital efficient way. Okay. So when we founded this organization, it was really with one mindset, which is revenue acceleration, as an agency to do that. So when you think about revenue growth, what we all want when we think about revenue growth is we want it to be intentional. In other words, we want to know where it's going to come from. We can't engineer revenue growth if we don't know where we want it to come from. Secondly, it needs to be predictable. We need to be in a position, whether we're a public company or a private company, that we can see have visibility and clarity about what revenue growth is going to happen this quarter in Q4, what's going to happen next quarter in Q1 and Q2 and so forth. It needs to be consistent. It needs to be such that we actually have a revenue creation process and we have visibility for that. It can be consistent from quarter to quarter, and it needs to be scalable. So as you add more partners, as you add more sales executives, you can continue to scale and have the success that you've had in the past. It needs to be demonstrable. It needs to be capital efficient. And also it needs to be profitable, meaning that we always need to look at the cost of acquisition for new customers, new organizations, new enterprises, and think about how do we maximize the underlying profitability of this existing model. For those that have joined us before, you probably noticed this revenue acceleration system that we often talk about. It's something that we perfected over hundreds of B2B companies. It represents the set of best practices and a connected system to ensure that you get the type of growth that you have in a predictable, intentional fashion. For today's webinar, we're going to focus on number 7. And number 7 is all about partner leverage, whether those be channel partners, strategic partners, technology partners, or other types of partners that you have in your ecosystem. We're going to focus on that today. In our next webinar, next month, we're going to talk about how do you engineer your revenue growth for 2022. How do you demonstrably do that? How do you do that so it's predictable? How do you do that so there's a complete underlying system that you can put in place and you know you're going to get the results you're looking for? So we're going to walk through that in our next webinar coming up next month, and we'll make sure that we cover that for everybody on the call. And I'll make sure that I send an invite to you. So let's talk a little bit about partnerships, because that's the main thesis for today. Partnerships come in many different forms. So when I was the CEO of Intacct, Intacct is a software as a service financial applications company headquartered in Silicon Valley. And as we were growing the company, I realized that I wanted to grow the company both direct and indirect. In fact, as we grew the company, half of our revenue came indirect and half came direct. As we looked at the partners that we wanted to work with, we added over 200 OEM, as I call them, OEM or private label partners. And many of those were focused on CPA firms. So those CPA firms would take our solutions and they would do the financials, conduct the financials, the reporting, and all the analysis for their clients, and do that instead of using something like QuickBooks or Sage or another type of system out there. In addition, what we figured out is we wanted to add vertical market makers. Now, the strategy here behind the vertical market makers was, as a horizontal solution provider, we couldn't get into every vertical, every industry. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to partner with vertical market makers, companies that already had a deep presence, a deep footprint into different industries. So that's why we partnered with a company called RealPage in the property management space, because RealPage is a leader in the space, and they ended up taking our solution as a private label solution to their customers, evolving a bigger solution for what I call the whole solution for their clients, and then taking that to market. Another client that we worked with, another partner, is Advanced Healthcare. Advanced Healthcare is a leader in retirement, acute care, and all the facilities that you have for geriatric care in terms of retirement homes and so forth. And so they, again, took our solution into the healthcare market to provide a unified, integrated whole solution to their clients. So there are a lot of ways that you can go to market here that make sense, and we were trying to explore and to leverage all those at Intacct. We also added 100 value-added resellers, systems integrators, and I call sell with partners. One of those partners that we worked with is Salesforce. So we realized, as an innovator in the SaaS, software as a service SaaS space, that we were going to provide our financial applications. And we also realized that on the CRM or sales side, many of those companies were going to use Salesforce. So we integrated our front office, back office together and took that to market with Salesforce. So they were really a great sell with partner that we worked with. And we even co-located salespeople together in San Francisco to make that happen. We also looking at broadening our footprint. So we realized, as a financial systems provider, that we didn't have enough functionality to meet the needs of every industry that we worked with. So that's why we partnered with a company called OpenAir on the East Coast and in the Boston area. And we just said, we want to be a player in the professional services area. So let's go ahead and partner with OpenAir, add that as an embedded part of our solution. And so we were their partner, if you will, taking that partnership to market. So you got this whole ecosystem of partnerships out there for you, and you want to make sure you're managing and maximizing all these partnerships that you have. And so that's just an example of making the partnerships work at different levels, as we did at Intacct, and you can do the same thing. Now, the fun thing about Intacct is that the company did get acquired by the Sage Group for $850 million. So it's a very successful outcome for all of the investors, for the stakeholders, and for the employees at the company. So let's talk a little bit about partner programs that exist today. And many of you may have an existing partner program that we could talk about. But one of the challenges that we see often with partner programs is the mechanics are there, they're constructed, but the partnerships are not bearing any fruit. In other words, they're paper partnerships. We also find that in many cases, they're opportunistic. So if I sign a partnership up with, let's say, IBM, and IBM is taking our solution or service to market, they're going to bring us in and partner with us or leverage our solutions when they find a client that has that need. So it can lead to sporadic or infrequent sales. Another challenge that many companies echo, and I hear this often from CEOs and the VP of Business Development, is that they chose the wrong partners. So they really didn't look at going in, who are the partners that they wanted to work with. In fact, some of those partners came to them and wanted to say, hey, let me represent you in EMEA since you don't have a footprint here. And it turned out not to be the best partners that they could have chosen. Another thing that can give you a little bit of heartburn is partners sign up for a program where they're going to take on a lot of the responsibility, but in fact they don't. And so you still do that full sale, if you will, and provide them with a bigger split or revenue share in that program. So those are just some of the challenges that we often see when it comes to the implemented partner programs with clients today. Let's go ahead and see if we can get some of your feedback, and let me go ahead and launch this poll. Love to get your feedback on these next two questions. So if I could just launch this, give me some sense in terms of how many partners do you have today in your program? Do you have none? So in other words, this is really a greenfield discussion here today. Do you have 10 partners, 50, 100 plus, or not really sure? So go ahead and if you could and opt in. And we've got a couple questions here, and we'll share the results with everybody on our call today. One of the best things about partners and partner programs is it gets you to many different markets, many different prospects and customers that you may not be able to get to on your own reconnaissance. Or maybe you don't have enough of a sales team to scale to meet that need. So this is a really good example. So I'll just keep the survey open here for a couple more seconds and then close it and share the results with everybody on today's call. Okay, let me go ahead and close that and share the results. Okay, 13% of you on the call today stated that you don't have any partners today. This is great for you to join this call today because we're going to talk about laying the right track in terms of choosing the right partners and getting them successful. 53%, that's number one, have about 10 partners. 20% of you have about 50. 10% have 100 plus, and 5% you're not sure. But that's great. So thank you very much for participating on that. Okay, one more question here if we could. When you think about your partner program, what's the biggest challenge that you have today? And by design, I'm asking you to pick one. You may say all of these. Is your biggest challenge identifying the right partners? Is it the recruiting aspect of getting these partners recruited? Is it onboarding these partners? Is it getting these partners to drive revenue? Or is it creating the right incentives for the partner sales team? So go ahead if you could take a look at that. And I think we know what the answer will be here. But it's always great to get a data-driven approach as we work together. Okay. So the biggest challenge that you have today, if you think about your current partner program, just another second or so. Thank you very much for participating. Okay, let me go ahead and close this and share the results. Okay, on the results on this poll, 13% of you stated that the biggest challenge is identifying the right partners. Another 13% stated it's recruiting the right partners. 8% stated it's onboarding these partners. The number one area is getting these partners. 58% of you stated it's getting the partners to drive revenue. And another 8% is creating the right incentives. Fantastic. Great input. So thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, let's build off that as we go forward. So each of you that are attending today's webinar will receive a copy of this. And this is essentially an infographic that gives you a visual representation of implementing what we call a proactive partner program that's going there to drive revenue. We're not going to focus on all these areas today because we don't have time to do that. But separately, I'd be happy to talk offline with any of you about what's in the partner program. Again, this is something we've perfected over many years. But for today, what we want to do is we want to focus on two main areas. And these two main areas, I think, are probably the most critical criteria that you'll have for success. So the first one I want to talk about is partner selection. Partner selection is making sure that you identify and choose the right partners. It's very easy to choose the wrong partners. In fact, you always hear that people will say the 80-20 rule applies here, where only 20% of their partners drive 80 or more percent of the revenue that they have. So if we could all find the 20% and instead of the 80% and choose that 20%, the right partners up front, we could significantly increase the likelihood of having the right partners that could drive revenue for us. So we're going to focus some energy on that, and we're going to walk you through an example of how we did that with one of our clients. We're also going to talk about the partner program architecture. So just like building any type of building that you have out there, a skyscraper, a train station, a home, where things are going to go right or wrong is when you architect that program up front. So we're going to talk about some of the keys to architect the right program so that you get the right results on the back end, which is increased revenue, coverage, and winning markets. The other thing we'll talk about is when you make these changes, this is not a 10% modification. So for instance, there are a lot of companies out there today that you could sit down with and they'd share with you, well, let's focus on the implementation of the partner program. How can we improve maybe some of the sales tools that are available to partners? How do we improve the deal registration process that we have? These are all great things to do and focus on. But I want to focus on those things that are going to move the needle 100%, not 10%. So that's where we're starting with these two areas today. So let's talk about the first area, which is identifying and prioritizing the right partners. One of the keys is to really start off with what's the ideal partner profile that you have for your company. Once you understand that profile, how do you create what we call the scorecard? So the scorecard is something that you could use when you look at, let's say, 100 potential partners or 1,000. You could look right away and say, of the 1,000 partners out there in our ecosystem, who are the top 25 that I should spend my time with today, based upon my scorecard? So that partner ecosystem map, we're going to talk about how do you build that out? And then how do you build out your outreach list and engage power or executives at the right partners? This is really important. It's really important. And like I said, we're going to walk you through a demonstrative example of one of our clients today. So let's talk about creating your IPP, your ideal partner profile. So when you think about partners out there today that are in your potential ecosystem that you have, what are the attributes that define a great partner for you? Do they have any partnering experience? So have they proven that they know how to partner? Do they have the competency to represent your solution or service? So for instance, if I'm SAP and I have an ERP solution, I don't think there are a lot of companies out there that could go out there and resell or take our ERP solution to market because it may be too complex for them. If I'm Oracle, though, and I have an Oracle database, there are probably a lot of companies out there that understand how to sell and present an Oracle database. If I have a recruiting service, I may be working with a lot of companies that are in the HR space that are looking for just the right recruiting service that they can leverage for their clients. So another thing is, do they have a significant distribution channel? If you're going to invest in a partner, you want to make sure that they can take your solution or service to market through their distribution channel. So if they have 2 salespeople, that's not going to be a very big distribution channel. If they have 500 or 1,000 customers, then that's going to be more attractive for you. And so what you want to really look at is some of the criteria that goes into putting together an IPP. And that IPP then becomes part of the scorecard. What I like to do today is walk you through a real example. So one of our clients is a company called Gather Digital. Gather Digital is a mobile event application that you can have on your smartphone. So whenever you go to a conference, whenever you go to a meeting, whenever you go to any type of meeting of people, conferences, associations, or whatever, you walk into the Hilton Hotel and you realize there's probably about 2,000 people or 4,000 people that are there for the same conference. And you're trying to figure out, where do I go? What's the agenda for these 3 days? Who are the speakers? Can I see their background? Can I look at their presentation? Can I network with other people at the conference? And can I talk to some of the SMEs or subject matter experts at the conference? Can I do polling with the attendees? So these are all things that Gather Digital created and provided a best-of-breed solution. So as we worked with them, we realized that they were focusing on providing their solution to many different types of organizations, from the enterprises to the associations to educational institutions. And half of their revenue, just like with Intacct, was coming through indirect partners. The other half was coming direct through their own direct sales team. So we wanted to help them be successful in both. And what we realized is that the major partner that they were working with at the time did an acquisition, and actually that acquisition was a competitor of theirs. And so consequently, they needed to reconstitute their entire partner program from scratch. And that's what we set out to do with them. So the first thing we did is we created what we call the ideal partner criteria. And we found 10 areas that we were going to score every partner on. So if you think about this, we looked at companies based upon size, and we looked at all the different companies that were involved in the event management space. So we wanted to look at all the other software companies out there that offered event management solutions. We wanted to look at competitors. We wanted to look at services companies. There are a lot of companies out there that arrange conferences, associations, and such. So we wanted to look at all those companies out there in that ecosystem, and we wanted to give them a score of up to 100 points. So as you can see, as we go through here, we came up and worked with the management team on key criteria that they thought were important. And I won't go through each one of these. Suffice to say, we came up with 10 that they thought were very relevant, and we facilitated the creation of their scorecard. And for you, if you were creating a scorecard, your scorecard or your profile would be different. So every company is going to be different about what those elements are. And in this case, we kept it to 10 because we thought that 10 in a score of 0 to 100, 0 to 10 points for each of them, up to 100, would be a great way for us to do that. So that was creating the criteria. That was creating the criteria that we're going to use for the scorecard. The next thing that we did is we mapped out their ecosystem. And this is interesting. Very few companies I've seen have actually done that, which is map out all of the potential all of the potential partners that they could work with. So the challenge a lot of times that we find is your opportunity cost when you're working with partners. So if you work with, let's say, 10 partners, and 53% of you stated earlier that you do, if you have 10 partners, that probably means that really consumes your attention and time. And that means that every partner that you bring on is going to take a certain amount of time, energy, and uh, dedication from you and your team. So there's opportunity costs. That's why it's really important to choose the right partners. So what we suggest is map out all of the companies in the space. So what we did with Gather Digital is we went through and we said, we're going to map out 150 companies. That's essentially what we did. We identified 150 companies that are either providing event management solutions or services in the event management space. And we divided them into 4 different categories. Based upon these categories, we figured out who are the best companies that they should approach to sell their solution. Who are the best companies or service providers that they should work with to refer their solution? Who are the competitors out there? And this is fluid. Sometimes the competition can change from year to year or every 3 years. So it's really important to take that type of status check. And then finally, who are the best companies to acquire the company? So working together with the principals, they were also thinking that it would be great to have an exit down the road if they found the right type of partner, strategic partner to work with. So as we mapped out all of these 150 companies, we did that against the scorecard that we created with them based upon the 10 criteria. And let me share with you a couple of those scorecards. One of the companies is Ashfield Meetings. Ashfield is a provider of a service provider that really helps companies pull together and organize and execute their conferences. And so you can see here on the scale, on the mapping here, out of 100 points, they scored a 90. Really an excellent score when you think about a potential partner. So let's take a look at another type of partner. SpotMe. SpotMe also is another company out there in the event management space. Now they only scored a 78, and so a little bit lower, but you're getting my point here, which is once you do 150 companies, you start figuring out who's the creme de la creme. Those are the top companies that you want to identify to approach, recruit, and partner with, because they're the right fit for your company, and they're going to have the right fit in terms of driving revenue for you too. Now let's take a look at a third company. This company is Certain Software. So this is a company that offers a event management solution, server-based event management solution. But what we found that was interesting as we scored them is you could see that they scored relatively low, which is a 62. And what we found is that they really didn't have a mobile strategy that they were executing in terms of how to execute the event management programs and applications on the smartphone. So in this case, this was interesting because they were the antithesis of the sell-through partner that Gather Digital would want to work with. But they would be the perfect company that could truly appreciate what Gather Digital could bring to the table in terms of their intellectual property, their capabilities in the mobile area that they weren't working in today. So if you go through this process, we help them identify the right partners to work with, and then we went out and we helped them recruit those partners. Very successful. So very successful scaling the direct sales organization, very successful at working with these partners. Now, in the case of Certain and getting the ball rolling, we realized that this also could lead to acquisition. And that's exactly what happened. Certain acquired Gather Digital, and it became their mobile event management strategy that they executed with the company. So anyway, even though a lot of times these partner programs are really talking about leverage for you into the marketplace that you want to serve and the coverage model that you want to create, it can also lead to strategic partnerships that lead to strategic acquisitions if they're well executed. So that's just a little bit about talking about the scorecard. And what's important takeaway here? The most important takeaway, I think, is choosing the right partners to work with. It also is a great way, once you create the scorecard, to look at your existing partners and to score every one of the partners you have today and objectively look at are these the right partners you should be working with? Or are there a certain number of partners, let's say 75%, that you shouldn't continue to work with, and you should go out there and really find the right partners in the future that are going to help you scale? So that's the value about that. The other value of the scorecard is when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, Bob, I'd love to partner with your company. I noticed that you don't have an office over here in Singapore. Is that something you'd like to look at us representing your services over here?" You can use this objective scorecard and look at whether you think this is going to be a right partner for you or not. Okay, so that's the first major breakthrough, I think, which is having a really objective way that's going to be right for you, right for your company, to recruit and identify the right partners. The second thing that I think is the big takeaway from today's webinar is architecting a proactive partner program. And I want to talk about it from three different areas, because some of these areas are missing, and when they're missing in your partner program, it causes your partner program to underperform in terms of your expectations. So the first is start with the executive sponsorship. So executive sponsorship is really important. And what I look at a lot of times, depending on the size of the company, is it's going to be the C-level executive that is sponsoring you as a partner in the partner program. So it's great to have the VP of Business Development or Alliances that you're working with, but it's also great if you have the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Executive Officer involved with working with your company. The second thing that's important is having an approach that will lead to everybody that they have partaking and using your service or solution. So it may not happen day one, but your objective should be to have everybody using your solution in the future. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. When I was Chief Operating Officer at a company called Silicon Energy, one of the service partners that we work with is CGEY, Capgemini, Ernst & Young. So a large systems integrator, global, and at Silicon Energy, we provided a energy management platform that could be used both by the utility providers as well as the large energy consumers, like the Walmarts or the mining companies out there in the world. And so we partnered with CGEY initially as a services partner that would go in there and do re-implementation work, digitization work, and also implementation work around energy management solutions. But because the partnership was working so well, they decided they would like to private label our solution. So our platform became a CGEY solution with its own name, its own brand that they would take to market. So that was something that we started with the conversation from day one. We didn't get there immediately, but needless to say, once they were selling that solution as their own, it broke down all the barriers that you typically have about explaining why these two companies are working together to provide one solution. The next area is making your solution or service strategic to their sales team and to their organization. And then finally, when you do build a partnership, where do you start? I think a great place to start is with an upsell to their current customers or clients that they have today. It provides a really great way for them to learn your solution, learn your service as a partner, take it to market where they don't have a lot of risk with new sales and new opportunities, and be in a position to really understand how they're going to hone their skills on representing your solution going to market. So from a strategic perspective, these are some of the things that I think are really going to be important in terms of having a proactive, not reactive, but proactive partner program. The second area I'd like to talk about is the DNA transfer. And this is difficult for companies to actually achieve. And the reason it's difficult is because by virtue of your existence, you are a domain expert in a specific area. Just like we're experts in revenue acceleration, experts in revenue growth, and we have tremendous number of innovations and best practices we bring to the table. When you go to somebody, you're trying to transfer that DNA. And a lot of companies do that through onboarding programs, training programs, and transfer programs. But what I found is typically not suffice. So one of the things that we always encourage is embedding your sales team into their sales process to help them close the first 5 transactions. And then from there, they see how it's done, and they can take on that responsibility more and more going forward. The second thing I look at is creating the whole solution. So for instance, if I'm Silicon Energy and I have a platform and I am partnering with CGEY and they have an energy management service that they're providing to large enterprise companies, we need to create something that represents the combined solution for the clients, not just a PowerPoint. Maybe it's an infographic, maybe it's a process-driven work infographic, but it's some type of visual way to represent both solutions together. And that's a really great way to do that. We have another client, for instance, that's involved in the mining industry, and they provide a supply chain management solution. And so we've created a way to represent their whole solution together with the back-end ERP solutions, which could be like a JD Edwards or an SAP that are typical in mining companies. So it really helps the target audience understand the new whole solution and how they're going to benefit from that. The other two things I look at is inventorying all of the required sales tools that you're going to need, as well as profiling the joint customer success stories. So this is very important in terms of making sure that this DNA transfer occurs. The third piece, which is probably could be even the most important piece, and that is getting sales buy-in of that partner organization. So one of the things that I've never seen done, but it's something that we always encourage and we help companies do, is priming the pump. So if I sign up with you to be a partner and you're going to represent, let's say, on-demand advisors and our revenue acceleration services to your clients, that's great, but it's not suffice. What we need to do instead is say, who is it that you're trying to go after, which markets and so forth. Why don't we create some marketing programs to create market qualified leads for your company? And then that way, it's going to prime the pump. So if you're walking in and you got 50 or 100 leads now, you're in a situation where you can prime the pump with their sales organization. So they've got things to work on, opportunities to work on. Another thing that's important is ensuring that their sales executives, their sales team, their sales organization is compensated for your service, compensated for your solution, the same way as they're compensated for their other services or solutions that they offer. So don't have your service become an orphan, if you will, that never gets sold. And it's important that they also receive quota credit. The third area is making sure that these partner leads that are created are protected. So if you're going to have a partner and you're going to have a myriad of partners, and that partner says, I'm going to register this lead with you to let you know I'm working this lead, you want to make sure that you're there to support them. One of the companies I found that was interesting company, and I won't name the company, that provided a competitor financial applications to Intacct, what they would do is they would create leads and they would give that to their direct sales team, and they would also give it to their distribution partners at the same time. And so there was a lot of channel conflict that was created there that ultimately created ill will with their channel partners. So you don't want to do that. Another thing that we find that's an excellent thing to do is profiling joint success stories. Now, when you're working with sales teams, it's all about control, right? Your partner sales team, they want to be in control of their sales process. They want to control every aspect of that. One way to get them comfortable with your solution is to profile success stories between your organization and their sales team. Where has that been possible? So for instance, another one of our clients is a company called eBuilder. eBuilder provides a capital project management system that's used by companies, large companies, to manage large projects. So they partnered with large engineering firms that would leverage their platform. Those large engineering firms would be like AECOM, Jacobs Engineering, Bechtel, and people like that. What we found is, as they were doing these type of projects, conducting these projects, they had some really great success stories, like with AECOM. So what we decided to do is build a webinar series for AECOM account managers, about 1,000 of them worldwide, and share with them the success that they had with the CTA in Chicago of that, working on that project, using the platform, working with eBuilder, and working with AECOM, and how did that sales team work together, and what were the results. once we did the webinar series internally to AECOM's account management team, that created, every time we did that, another 8 to 10 new projects. So it's a very, very persuasive way to win over the sales team. And then finally, building a referenceable list for joint solutions. So who is using AECOM and who is using eBuilder, building that referenceable list and making that available to their team. So that takes us back to implementing your proactive partner program and really making sure that it's not just a paper partnership, it's a partnership that's working to drive revenue growth for your company. So let's do one more question if we could here, one more poll. And love to have you, if you could, take a few moments to share your thoughts here. From today's webinar, what's your most important takeaway from today's webinar? Is it that you want to create a partner scorecard for your company to start looking at how you're going to score and rank different partners out there in the ecosystem? Is it that you want to move from an opportunistic to a proactive partner program? Is that the most important driver for you? Are you thinking about maybe mapping an ecosystem of potential partners that you could consider engaging, broadening your perspective? Is it really that you want to determine how to make your existing partners more successful, more efficient? Or perhaps you're not sure and you just think this hopefully was some phenomenal information that you can start applying to your company today. But if you could, go ahead and give us your thoughts, and I'll share that with everybody on today's webinar. And again, thanks very much for participating. It really makes this interactive and makes all this possible. And as you can imagine, since we just covered 2 topics today in our 45 minutes that we've had together, there's a lot to cover when it comes to a proactive partner program. There's a lot of best practices that goes into this. There's a lot of things that you could apply at your company today, even if you have 1,000 partners or if you have no partners. There are so many things that you can take away that can make a difference for your company. So let's go ahead and now close the poll here. And thank you very much for participating. And let me share the results. So 26% of you stated that your major takeaway is to creating a partner scorecard for your company. 21% stated that your major takeaway is moving from an opportunistic to a proactive partner program, which is great. 10% stated that you like to map out your ecosystem of potential partners. The number one area is really determining how you make your existing partner program more effective. And then finally, 8%, you're not sure, but you thought information is going to be useful in terms of going forward. So thank you again for participating in that. And what we'd like to do right now is open this up for Q&A. So if you could, go ahead and post your questions that you have, and I'll get to as many questions as I can in today's webinar. We always encourage every question, by the way. So there's never a silly question. There's never a question that shouldn't be answered. Every question is absolutely valid. So let's go ahead and start this off. And this is an interesting question. This is from Mary. She says, when should we not partner? That's actually an interesting question, Mary. And so a lot of time we spend talking about why we should partner and how do we partner and those things. But obviously there are situations where you shouldn't partner. And one of the things I would say to that, Mary, it's a great question, is when there's not a good fit. So if you don't have a great fit with a potential partner, then it's probably a great situation where you should start thinking about why would we want to pass on that partnership? Because I think that's going to be one of the things that you want to really focus on, is find the right partners, find the right fit, make sure that their motivations are aligned with your motivations. Another thing that we look at a lot of times is looking at if they've successfully partnered in the past, or if they have a track record. If they don't, just realize that you're putting all your chips on Red 65, and you don't know if that's going to pay off or not. So anyway, that's really a good question. So thank you for that question, Mary. Let's go ahead and look at another question. This question is from Jeremy. Jeremy says, why do you prefer the embedded program? So I talked about the embedded program or the embedded partnership program that we used at Intacct, and we're very successful. I also gave an example at Silicon Energy where we did that with CGEY. So when you think about the partners types out there, there's the referral partners. That's typically very opportunistic. When somebody says, hey, I'm going to refer you in, and maybe you're going to give me 10% as a referral fee. That's great, but not very sticky, not very repeatable. The next type of partner is a value-added reseller partner. Somebody that says, let me take your solution or service to market, and I'll do most of the sales, and that's fine. But the challenge that a lot of times that partner has is that they have to explain the partnership with your service or solution that they're taking to market, because multiple brands are still going to be represented there, and it's going to be necessary for them to convince their client, their customer, that this is the partnership for the long term. So the embedded or private label partner program, it takes all of those issues away. So that becomes their brand. Companies typically like that when they can put more of solutions underneath their umbrella. It also eliminates a lot of the questions or issues that potential customers or clients have about how all these pieces fit together. And you think about that, if you're a technology company today, you're already integrating many different technology components into your solution anyway to take it to market. So that's not unusual. And by the way, everybody is a technology company. Everybody is a software company today because that's pervasive across all of our companies. So it's really good to be able to think about that from different perspectives. How do you build the trust to prime the pump? Okay, so priming the pump. So let's say I signed up a company and they were going to be one of our distribution partners. And let's say they're going to be a distribution partner in the healthcare space. So first of all, they're going to score high in the scorecard. So they're going to have the attributes that I'm looking for. And then if we basically both put money into the pot, we're going to create a demand generation program to create market qualified leads for both companies. If we do that, what I'm going to do then is make sure I've done a good job as far as the registration process, the DNA transfer, the training, and so forth. And we're going to create, let's say, 50 market qualified leads. So those are 50 people in their target audience in healthcare that are interested in this solution. And then what we're going to do there is we're going to support them through that sales process. So what I talked about is embedding our sales team into their sales team for the first 5 transactions. It's a great way to make sure that they're going to be successful at pulling this off. So anyway, that's how you, I think, build trust, is you build trust through the execution for both parties. Please share ideas on how we can increase the partner pipeline visibility. That's a great question because, Joe, you brought that question up. And a lot of times the challenge we have is when we're selling indirect, we don't have the same visibility that we do when we're selling direct. So we've got all of those opportunities in our CRM system. I think one of the things that you should do with a partner is they're going to be managing all their partner opportunities that they're working on through their own CRM system or PRM, whatever you have. So they're going to be using their own system. What I would think you'd want to do is sit down with them at least once a month, but no later than once a quarter, and really understand all of the different opportunities that they're working, that they're registered with you, and see where those are in their sales cycle, because you really want to have visibility to where they stand as they're going through. Let's say they have 50 opportunities that they're working on that include your service or solution. You want to have a visibility to that. And you also want to be at the table where you can offer assistance to them as they need to. So again, don't forget the embedding yourself in the first 5 deals so that you can make sure that this is really working well. So good question. So here's another question, and this one is, what is the market rate for commission percentage for our partners? So good question, and let's see who's that's from. That's from Tom. So Tom, good question. It's going to vary depending upon what the partner does and what you do. So I always look at this as a continuum. So in the referral situation, where somebody's referring a prospect to you, and they're helping you with the executive support and coordination, you may only be giving up 5 to 10% as a referral fee. If you move to the next model, which is a reseller, where they're taking your solution or service and they're actually reselling it to the marketplace, then you may be giving up, let's say, 25% as typical solution. If you move to the next model, and the next model is an embedded model, where it's going to be a private label model, they're going to take your software solution or they're going to take your service, and they're going to embed that and take that to market as their own solution. Now they're doing most of the work. Now they're also going to be doing not only all the selling and the marketing of that solution, but they're also probably going to be doing the first line customer support, and you'll do the second line of customer support. In that case, you're typically going to see around 50% revenue split between the two companies. So that gives you a 10%, a 25%, and a 50%, if that gives you some good criteria. But it largely comes down to making sure that that partner is fully enabled and going to execute that. Otherwise, you're just giving up more percentage of revenue to somebody and still doing the work yourself. This is a good question from Farah, and that is how to fire a partner without impacting the customer experience. Well, that's really interesting. I would say that it's hard to fire somebody for the existing customers that have been signed up, but I wouldn't necessarily hire them for new opportunities. So in other words, when a partner brings somebody to the table and they are using your software or your service or your solution, what you want to do basically is honor that, because that's what you did from the day one. So you still want to support them and support that customer. However, you may decide that you don't want to renew the partnership. You may decide to have a good sit-down discussion with that partner and say the partnership's not working, but you're here to honor and serve the clients that have been already sold in that partnership. So it's a great question, and I think it's a good way to start thinking about that. Let's see. Is there a perspective that you can shed on the fact that the principal has its own journey and limitation, unlike SAP and Oracle, and the partner they are recruiting have optimized? I think what I have to do is what I'm going to do is understand that question offline and see if we can get to that. So looks like a kind of a detailed question, and that's basically what I'll do. Here's another question. When is the right time to introduce a partner program versus direct sales approach as you're looking at with a startup or a high-tech company? So that's interesting. So when you think about a startup or a high-tech company, in fact, I'm working with one right now in Vancouver, and it's kind of a step process. The first thing we're doing is we're really helping them perfect the direct sales model that they have. And we're going to help them really do that over the next 12 months, perfect, grow, scale, put in their revenue acceleration engine, and really do a great job scaling their direct sales. But the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to help them recruit and bring on the right partners. The reason why we're going to do that sequence is because many of the partners that would be partnering with you or partnering with another company, they're looking for the secret sauce. They want to know that you've created the secret sauce. They want to know that you've been successful in perfecting the sale of that secret sauce. And they're going to want to reuse and take all other things that you've learned and apply that in their business model. So that's why I think there is a sequence here. We're thinking about that. And I've seen that many times, and we've implemented that many times with our clients moving forward. So great questions. And if I didn't get to your question today, feel free to follow up with me. I'll give you my contact information at the end of today's webinar, or I'll follow up with you proactively. So what's next for you based upon today's webinar? Number one is sign up for a free assessment or no obligation a review of your current partner program to really hone in on what we talked about during the survey, which is identifying areas of improvement. So happy to do that. And I'll be sending everybody that attended today's webinar an email as far as follow-up, so you'll have access to the recording. you'll have also access to my schedule. So if you want to map some time, we can do that. The second thing is we could sit down and talk about your partner scorecard. How could you create a partner scorecard that you can start using to identify and select the right partners? The third thing is to implement the Partner Revenue Acceleration Program. 13% of you, as I recall from the survey, stated that you don't have any partners today, so that probably means you're in a startup mode, thinking about how to put in the right partner program from scratch and do it without a lot of expensive and timely experimentation. And then finally, everybody's going to receive a copy of our Partner Revenue Acceleration Program that we have here today. And keep in mind that you should also look at our next couple of webinars that we have coming up. This is just a tremendous amount of time for you to think about engineering your growth and success for next year. And coming up in November, we're going to have how to engineer your revenue growth for 2022. We're going to walk you through systematically how do you engineer that growth, how do you make that real. So it's not just a number. It's not saying I'm just going to grow revenue by 30%. It's actually having the actionable plan that you're going to put in place and execute to make that happen. And then in December, we're going to also talk about the 10 marketing best practices that every B2B company needs today, wants to apply today, wants to leverage. And that also is coming up. So both of these webinars are on our website. And then I'll be sending links to the next webinar in our email today too. So with that, we appreciate your time together over this past hour that we've spent together. We hope that you've gotten a tremendous amount of benefit and information that you can apply to your company today in terms of accelerating the growth and the penetration success that you have with your partner program. Here's my email contact information. Here's Craig. Both Craig and I are the partners for On-Demand Advisors. Here's our contact phone number, website, and of course we have offices on the West Coast and East Coast. We serve many clients, not only here in North America, but also globally. So on behalf of myself, Craig, and the entire On-Demand Advisors team, I'd like to thank you for participating and joining us for today's webinar. It's been a pleasure, a privilege to have you join us, and we look forward to working with you as you head into 2022. Have a great day, everyone.